1. I used to daydream about driving across the country in an RV and seeing the world. I had wanderlust like no other, and the van dwellers of Instagram really made it look so easy and fun. I was hooked, and after I made up my mind, I bought a van and stripped it up with a bed, drawers, storage, bike rack, and even a little bathroom area. The tiny home on wheels held so much potential, and the future looked bright, or so I thought. I made my way to the first destination on my list, Charleston, USA. It was beautiful, and I had dreams of spending my days on the beach and watching the sun rise and set each morning. Well, as some of you may or may not know, this was a van, and some stealth camping needed to be done to ensure safety, and that I wouldn't get towed and bothered by law enforcement. Volume levels were low, and lights were always dimmed when I spent time in my van. Not only that, but the windows were tinted, and I had curtains as well, so you really couldn't see anything through them. One of the first nights, I decided to park in a back alley parking lot with no street lights and no pedestrian traffic. I felt safe and comfortable enough to relax and play some Pokemon on my DS. I was propped up on a pillow that was laying against the back double doors. About 30 minutes after I parked, I noticed a man walk past my van. He seemed to be in a hurry, so I didn't pay him any mind. About 15 minutes pass, and I hear a jingle sound and then scraping noises. I turn around, and there he is, the same man trying to break into my van as I'm sitting in it. Our faces are only inches apart through the glass. He doesn't see me. In this moment, I kind of reacted as you would if a dog does something and you want to get its attention and make it stop. I have dogs, so this was automatic, and I made a sound that was sort of like, "Huh." Well, that gets his attention. He looks up and squints at me. "Get the fuck out," he goes. "Oh shit," and runs off. Looking back, it was kind of funny, as I knew he didn't mean me any harm and probably shit his pants when he found out I had caught him. It was really the next night that made me realize that van living isn't all it's cracked up to be. I decided to park in a more crowded area the next night. Before hunkering down, I drove to a nearby grocery store to grab food. Little naive me thought since this is a grocery store, I should be able to have my lights on and not be bothered. I turn the lights up and do some cleaning before bed, i.e. folding clothes, puffing pillows, sweeping, etc. I notice a car across the parking lot is cranked up with its lights on, but hasn't actually pulled out yet. I don't pay it any mind and finish up my cleaning. The next thing I know, the same car has driven up behind my van and is just sitting in the lane, not moving. I wait for a while and it doesn't budge, so I decided to cut off my lights and sit in the driver's seat to observe. It still doesn't move. My internal alarm system is going berserk, so I decide to get the hell out of there and crank up my van so I can leave. I need to pull out, but the car is blocking me. I start inching out in reverse, and the driver finally gets the message and drives away. I watch the car leave and stop at an intersection. There are only two ways it could go, I thought. It could either go left, which exits the parking lot, and means that the person isn't a threat, or it could go right, which circles back into the parking lot and means that this person possibly is a threat. I wait and watch, and for some reason I don't see which direction the car turns. I chalk it up to getting confused and being paranoid. After a few minutes, I decide to leave. Remember when I said there were only two ways the car could go? Well, I was wrong. There was another way it could go, and that direction is straight into another parking lot. When I arrived at the intersection, wouldn't you know it, it's the car from before. And it's parked, still cranked, with its lights on facing the intersection. I'm sweating bullets and book it over to where I planned on sleeping, hoping that I'm driving fast enough to lose this creep. My spot for the night was going to be a 24-hour gym. Lots of streetlights, people walking across the lot at all hours of the night. Seemed like the perfect place to sleep since the previous night I almost had a break-in while parked in a dark, empty area. I park and wait. I don't see anyone other than gym rats with duffels and water bottles in hand. I let my guard down and start getting ready for bed. Just as I'm reaching into the front seat to grab my phone, I see this car and finally the driver of the car, white male, peering into the windshield of my van. and he does see me as my front window is the only window that isn't tinted. We lock eyes, I freak the fuck out. He starts circling my van with his vehicle, so I pull out and find a parking spot right next to the front door of the gym, where he can't circle me anymore. Well, bucko, he doesn't give up. He just parks across from me, car still cranked, lights still on, facing me. I understand I'm in danger and decide to call someone I know that lives in Charleston. Thankfully, they let me stay with them for the night, so once I got the okay to head over, I drove out of the parking lot and drove as fast as I could to my friend's house. It was 30 minutes away, and I was driving so fast that I don't even know and for how long the guy was following me. Needless to say, #van life is a lot more dangerous than the IG van dwellers would have you think. I felt duped and eventually just got an apartment. I feel a lot safer, and even though I would still like to travel, I intend to stay at an RV park the next go around. As far as the stalker that I encountered, how about let's not meet again, shall we? 2. Greetings from India. Wanted to share an experience my sister and I experienced. We are pretty close, my sister and I, even though I am older than her by 4 years. This happened last November on my birthday. Now, as you all know, our country is not the safest for girls. Not advisable for girls to travel alone, etc. But we usually find a way around to do normal things and have normal experiences and dodge the assholes. I live in one of the metro cities in the south, so it's comparatively safer. But all girls who are born here or live here have a radar of finding or dodging the weirdos. I had just got out of a really long relationship, 11 years, and wanted to spend my first single birthday in a really long time away from the city and people I know. I had gone on a couple of solo trips and was pretty confident about taking care of myself and sniffing out the bloody weirdos. So we both decided to go to this beach destination I used to frequently go to. This would be my 5th time there. Every time I've been there, I've stayed at the same shack, so the folks running the place are familiar with me. We decided to stay at the place as we felt it would be safer, and since the season had just begun, this place had more tourists compared to the other places, because, you know, it's always safe to be around people. We were wrong. So this beach gets a lot of tourists who first come to visit, but decide to stay back indefinitely because it's spiritual. Well known for the temple in the town. Beautiful, affordable, around $3 to $5 per night, and they usually get a discount from the shack owners, if they're staying for long. And cause, you know, the eat, pray, love. This time around, there were around 50 to 60 tourists on the beach, so it was pretty private and secluded. We reached the day before my birthday and checked into our shack. We noticed a big group of guys staying in the shack opposite to us. They seemed to be in their own world and didn't bother us. Apart from the big group of guys, 8 or 9, we met and shared a smoke with a French couple who were staying at the same place. We decided to unpack, change, shower, and head out to do some exploring. On our way out, we passed by the owner of the shack chatting with a couple of tourists and regulars. I saw a couple of familiar faces, shack owner's wife and some tourists I've seen in my previous visits, and I'm guessing he stays there now. We walk around, read, play with the beach doggies, and have dinner at a neighboring place, and back to our shack by 10-something in the night. We chill outside our shack, listen to music, talk, and by 12-something, it's my birthday now, we decide to call it a night. I made sure we leave the light outside the door on, that way we can see through the blurred glass if someone's outside. We had played in the beach earlier, so we had put our shorts out to dry. Shack is pretty small. Our bed was facing the door and a double window right next to the door. So this shack is basically a hut made of bricks with a tiled roof. There's a small gap where the roof meets the wall, so we can hear everything happening outside, and vice versa. My sister was out cold once we hit the bed, and I was up for a bit replying to my birthday text and passed out by 1:20 a.m. I remember this distinctly, as that was the last text I sent to my friend. At some point I wake up with someone knocking on the door. At first I thought it was just a dream and decided to go back to sleep, and as I was about to shut my eyes, I see someone outside the blurry window. Now I'm wide awake and on high alert. It could just be one of the other folks staying there, just walking around. Why the fuck would they be knocking on the door at 2:10 in the night? I give it a minute or two to see if I was just imagining the knock. Maybe I heard light footsteps or someone passing by. The weirdo knocks again. No mistaking this for light footsteps or anything else. I'm torn between waking my sister up or not. She panics easily, so I nudge her to wake her up and whisper that there's someone at the door. She thinks I'm dreaming, so she's asking me to go back to sleep. That's when we see a figure outside the window, but this time, this fool is trying to open the sliding windows from the outside. I usually travel with a pepper spray and a Swiss knife, so I get up to get both. I was mad. I planned to stab the fuck out of his hand if he opened the window. He takes turns between trying to push the door open and trying to get the window open. Since the outside light was on, we could see the person is shirtless and fair-skinned and wearing blue pants and shorts. My sister's anxiety increases every time he's at the window, trying to get it open. So on his 5th attempt she says, "Who the fuck is out there?" He stops then, and starts walking around our shack in circles. Earlier we had noticed a couple of old chairs and tables stashed between our shack and the next one. We could hear him fiddle with the chairs and tables to find access, maybe. I don't know. At least he's given up trying to break in. No way we can go back to sleep now, so we put the lights on, so he knows we're awake and on guard. Now we're both furious and ready to kick this mofo's ass. He stopped circling the shack after a good half an hour. We packed the next morning, and decided to move to the next place. We step out of the shack and notice the clothes we had hung out to dry are missing. I talked to the owner's wife and tell her about last night's incident. She seemed apologetic and said she heard a big group of guys making noise and playing loud music till late in the night. We heard them too, but we know the music and party stopped way before someone tried to break in, because we wouldn't have heard it otherwise. I tell her this and she seemed a little off and confused about the timings. We were waiting at the cafe for the owner's wife to return. She wanted to make sure there were no damages, the usual protocol. We see the same tourist who was chatting with the owner the previous day. The same guy I've seen before during my last few visits. He's never talked to me before or the previous day. As he's passing by, we see he's wearing jeans shorts. He stops to say hi and ask how was our stay and if we're having fun. He can clearly see us with our backpacks and really pissed off. We had passed by this guy many times the day before, but he decides to say hi and talk to us now and ask if we're having fun. At this point, the owner's wife is back and inspecting the shack for damages, and she tells the guy we're leaving because of noise in the night. He has the balls to tell us, "Are you sure? Maybe another night here will change your mind." He proceeds to ask us if we know where we're staying. I tell him even if I did know, I won't tell because I don't want the noise to follow us to the new place. He smirks and says, "Let's hope." I'm not entirely sure if it was this guy who was trying to break in, but the whole weird conversation and sudden interest in us made it convincing. Maybe we were just assuming it was him. Maybe he saw we were pissed off and wanted to have a conversation. Luckily, we moved to a better shack and made friends with the owners. Had a fun birthday after that. So to the creep who tried to break into our room on my birthday, let's not meet, 'cause next time we are prepared for a fight. 3. My good friend and I hadn't seen each other in a couple weeks, so we decided to go out to the arcade bar downtown to hang out and catch up. She picks me up, we get to the bar and order our drinks, and then station up at Tetris. Now, a little bit of additional context because in hindsight, I feel like it could have been a bit important to consider. We're both female in our 20s, and aren't exactly the most subtle or modest when we're together. We aren't rowdy or chaotic, but we joke around a lot, laugh loudly, and are usually dressed to impress. We were having a good time, dancing along to the music as we played games, and really just sort of stood out a bit from the more casual atmosphere of most other patrons. We had arrived at around 9:30 to 10 p.m. and ended up staying until around 12:40 a.m. The arcade bar closes at 1 a.m., so we finished our drinks, played one last game, and then decided to drive to another bar for the remaining 2 hours before everything closed at 3 a.m. Driving under the influence, very dumb, I know. We had only a couple light drinks, though, and weren't planning to get crazy. We live in a good-sized college town, but due to the weather being a little rainy and cold, there weren't a ton of people out and about on the streets as we walked back to her car, which was on the opposite end of the block, but still the same stretch of road as the bar. Once we get in, we sit in the car for a couple minutes talking about various things. She was trying to pull up music on her phone, but the app was having connectivity issues, so it was taking much longer than it should have. In that time, a large white van pulls up and parks directly beside us. I remember pointing it out when it parked next to us because it was huge. She drives a 2018 Jeep Wrangler, and this van's windows were on par with or taller than our windows. It was pretty much the stereotypical creeper van, but I remember thinking it looked really nice, new and shiny. At that point, though, nothing was out of the ordinary, and we continued on talking and fiddling with the radio for another 5 or so minutes. Eventually, we gave up on the music and started backing out of the parking space to head to the other bar. Coincidentally, the van starts up as well and backs out of their parking space just as we drive off. We never saw anyone get out of the van, so it seemed strange that they were suddenly now leaving after having just parked next to us 10 or so minutes ago. Now, being 2 young women at the bar scene in a college town, we were always on the lookout. We are immediately suspicious of this van when we notice it behind us, but we write it off initially as a coincidence. To explain the setup a bit, our downtown is designed with essentially all north to south streets, being alternating one-ways with few exceptions, and nearly all east to west streets being two-ways. Sometimes to get certain places, you're basically forced to take certain routes because of the one-ways. To get to the next bar, we turned left to face a one-way south, and then left again to go east on a two-way. At the very end of that street, about 5 blocks, was our destination. The van follows us the entire way, and at this point we are certain that it's not just a coincidence. We're trying to be hopeful that maybe they're just going to a bar as well, but as my friend later recalled, they never used any turn signals while behind us, and made sure to keep a close distance. There is a small parking lot behind the bar where we were headed to, and because of the one-way street next to it, there is literally only one route you can take to get to it. So we turn right onto that street, drive about 40 feet, and then immediately turn into the parking lot. Because of the bar itself, the parking lot is invisible from the two-way street we initially turned off of, meaning the van wouldn't have been able to see us go into the parking lot until after they cleared the intersection. The parking lot is also a sort of C-shape, with one strict entrance and one strict exit. So if you miss the entrance, you technically would have to drive all the way around the block again. Thankfully, there was another car at the intersection that got between us and the van, so we had more time to essentially hide in the parking lot and see if the van would also come around the corner. My friend immediately turned the Jeep's lights off. Funnily enough, we actually parked right next to another Jeep Wrangler, and we watched. Surely enough, within a few seconds, the van made its appearance, but did not turn into the parking lot and instead drove past it. However, this is why knowing about the one-ways is important. Because of the way the streets are set up, there would only have been 2 logical reasons why they would have turned after us on that one-way street. A, they were indeed going to a bar as well, and were going to park in this parking lot, or the one next to it. It's 1 a.m., so all nearby restaurants are closed. Or B, they were going to continue straight down that road and go into the residential areas to go home, etc. They did neither of these things and instead turned right back towards the main downtown area, which heavily suggested that they were headed back to loop around the block again, because they potentially saw us in the parking lot, but were too late and had missed the turn. After that, we were on high alert, abandoned our bar plans, and immediately hightailed it out of there while they were still headed around the block. We took routes that were not the main or more obvious ones, but still in populated areas, so we had as much of a chance of losing them as possible. Thankfully, we never saw them again after that point. For the entire duration of all this, my first thought was that it was an undercover cop trying to catch us with a DUI because I was buzzed and paranoid. Maybe they saw us leave the bar and get into our car and decided to follow us. Afterwards, though, as my friend and I were talking about it, that seems unlikely. Why would they follow us for nearly 6 blocks and never attempt to pull us over? Wouldn't they flip on their lights once they started driving, or whenever the other car was going to get between us at the intersection? It just feels more sinister than that. I'm extremely thankful that we noticed them immediately, and we never got out of the car at that second bar to allow them to catch up to us. Stranger, or strangers in the creeper van, let's not meet. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 367. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And that's me back working after a week off. Although I am going to have to clear out a bit of time either this week or next week. I did go shopping, recording this on Sunday, well, technically Monday. I did go shopping in Glasgow on Sunday, and one of the wallpaper places in Glasgow had a sale on, so it was a good time to go. And as always goes, well, I kind of like that one. You have it in a darker colour? No. Did you have this? No. Right. So eventually I settled on one, because I had to get something, because the room really is a mess. And so I found something I kind of liked. You know, it's kind of black with like a silver diamond design on it. I can live with that. And I'll need to clear out time to actually put it on the walls. And there's a few bits and bobs I'll need to get afterwards, but I can get most of those in... I almost said the name of the town I lived in. I can get most of those in my local area. Most of them. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.